Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from podweather.com and Internet Partnership Radio. It is September 11th, 2009, and 8 years ago, it's hard to believe, 8 years ago today, the world was in shock from the terrorist attacks in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania. And none of us who remember it will ever forget where we were, what we were doing, and every year that goes by, it's hard to believe that it's been 8 years. For those of you too young to remember 9/11, it's going to be a big part of your generation. So, absolutely, the heroics of that day showed the best of America. Now, this date on the calendar for hurricane season is important too because typically September 8th, 10th, 11th, 12th or so, that's right about the peak of hurricane season, officially September 10th. And out there today we have Fred, which has weakened from a hurricane. It had been up to a major hurricane. It's now down to a tropical storm, and it is forecast to continue to weaken and turn back west. How far west it gets and whether or not it ever regenerates is going to be something of discussion in today's update. We have a new wave just having left Africa that's got a low chance of development, not looking too good right now. A blowup of convection that continues to move northward in the Caribbean Sea. We'll see if this does anything. And off screen in the Western Gulf, and then all the way up here to this low in New Jersey. There's a lot of troughiness close to home that we're going to be talking about as well. First to Fred. As of 5 p.m. Eastern, it was at 18.1 north, 34.6 west. Winds were 70 miles an hour, gusting to 85. It's moving northeast at 2, 987 millibars. Again, it is forecast to meander a while and then turn back west-northwest and then eventually more westerly, even probably more than this map shows. And could be a bit further south. It could be a bit further north. Either way, a slow, steady west-northwest to westward movement over the next several days as a weakening tropical depression or even a remnant low. Now, looking at the model guidance, you can see the only model that doesn't turn it back west is the BAM Deep, but that would be for a stronger system. You can see it actually turns it over these islands here and then back into Africa. That'd be quite an unusual track, but that's not going to happen. It will eventually turn west. Now, whether or not it's like the UK Met down here and kind of head south and then back up towards the west-northwest, if it's like the H-Wurf model, which keeps it somewhat stronger into the north, no gaps, which keeps it a little bit to the north and then starts to bend it west, or the GFS, which keeps it way westerly and even takes it up towards north of Puerto Rico, that's just too far out in the future to really be able to grasp at this time. Now here's the long-range GFS, and you can see what it does with Fred. Fred's sitting there in the eastern Atlantic, and as it begins to weaken and as it begins to pull off towards the west-northwest, you can see Fred gets caught under ridging. And typically when a storm gets caught under ridging, it finds itself in a bit more favorable environment, and it finds itself able to strengthen more than it had before. Now, this model does not appear to want to move for me for some reason, and it's really getting me angry right now. However, you can see there it goes off towards the west, and in the final analysis, what is Fred, or what would have been Fred as we continue to track the remnant of Fred, ends up, believe it or not, hitting Florida. Okay, there. There is Fred. Now this shows Fred hitting Florida by around the 21st, 22nd of September. So this is a good 10, 12 days out. But Fred clearly stops, weakens, turns back west, the ridge keeps rolling, and Fred barrels into Florida as a discernible system. Now, whether or not this is a hurricane, whether or not this is a tropical wave, with these closed isobars, this would look at least like a depression or a tropical storm rolling on through north of Puerto Rico, north of the Bahamas, into Florida. Not even taking that curve, just doing a straight west kind of thing. And then behind it, we have more systems coming off Africa to have to deal with. So, if the GFS is correct, long range, take it with a grain of salt, we could be dealing with Fred down the road closer to land. There's always the chance of regeneration, maybe 10 days from now. You know, we've seen systems before we've been tracking out here, they didn't do anything, and then down the road they come back big time, and you always have to watch that very, very carefully. Now here's Fred on the satellite imagery, and you can see it's not looking all that good. It's trying to burst, but it's really having a hard time with it. In the western Atlantic, you can see there's that system in the Caribbean Sea, and there's the system and the troughiness all the way in the Gulf of Mexico and the Bahamas. If we take a closer look at the visible satellite loop, there's no clear signs of a circulation there yet, but this blob right here is moving away from the land masses, not into land. And as long as it's over those hot waters and as long as it's got, some kick to it, you have to watch out. Nevertheless, heavy rainfall and gusty weather for the Gulf Coast is a certainty at this point, as whatever of this system continues to move up towards Louisiana and Texas. If it does develop into Grace, it probably won't get too strong, but still, something to watch, no doubt about that. The recap of the Atlantic, there's Fred on the edge of the screen, still so far east you could barely see it. Expected to move west-northwest, then turn back west. How far west it gets, does it do what the GFS does? Does it dissipate completely? Does it head further south? Does it turn? Still a little bit uncertain, but we're going to watch it. This area in the Caribbean could move northward, we're going to have to watch it, and this area in the Gulf is going to move towards the coast, and we'll see if we get development with that. Still have Linda down to 40 miles an hour, moving northwest at 5. Not going to have to deal with that anymore. You can see it's basically now just an exposed, weakening vortex out here in the eastern Pacific. Still showing a good circulation, though, but no convection, thus a weak tropical storm. And out in the western Pacific, yesterday, this was the satellite, our depression moving into southern Asia, and we had a few blobs out there. Now, 24 hours later, check it out. Clearly, we have some good outflow on the southern and western side of whatever could be trying to spin here, and the rainfall still from our depression over Vietnam and Central Asia. We're going to have to watch that carefully. And that is a image of Hurricane Jean 5 years ago. I don't know why that's there, don't ask me, but that is not the current radar picture out of Melbourne, I can assure you of that. And that is Hurricane Ivan. I don't know why that's there either. That's Hurricane Ivan. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Get a bit of a laugh there on this otherwise bleak day of remembrance in the United States. That's the latest on the tropics. I'm Mike Naso from IPR. I'll see you next time.